Hello all, Cynthia here. Welcome back. Today I'm working on a art journal process video. This one I'm doing as a part of the art journal prompts. So the face group with the same name, and each week they put out a list of prompts for you to do, and the one that I'm doing this week is week 28, where it's rework an old page. So the page you saw there at the beginning was one that I did when I first started art journaling, and I didn't really know what I was doing, didn't have a style, didn't know what I liked. And the page itself didn't have any focal point or anything that really drew your eye to. And as I've gone on in my pages, I realised that I like to have a scene or a focal point on my page. So I never really took to that page. Loved the quote. The quote says, sometimes the smallest steps in the right direction end up being the biggest step of your life. Tiptoe if you must, but take the step. So that quote come from a girl at work, so about 12 months ago thereabouts. She was going through quite a hard time and was talking about how she could move forward, and we had to say, well, it was just one step at a time. And that night I come home and I created the original page. And as I said, I haven't liked it. No, I've never liked that page. Every time I flip through my journal, I sort of thought, oh, I really want to do something with it. And this prompt was as soon as I saw that that was what the prompt was going to be, I knew it would be this page that I would rework. So while I've been yabbling on, I've added some gesso to the page. My initial thought was I would try to keep the purple pink as a sort of background colour and carry that through. And then I did some stenciling down the bottom with some modelling paste and put in, I'm visualising it as a brick road, something along that line is what I'm thinking it's going to be. You saw me put a couple of legs on there. That's some legs and feet that I drew. Yeah, I don't use them. They're pretty hideous. But it was just trying to come up with the idea. I end up finding a magazine and cutting some legs out, which is what I generally don't like to do. Don't like generally using magazine clippings. But I did this time, and I quite liked the end result. So when I put the gesso down, the first layer down, I could still see the words of the original quote. So I decided to put a little bit more gesso on top of that, which was bright white again. So I've come in with some coloured, blue coloured paint. And you saw me there, acrylic paints, 3 different colours. And I've just tried to get a streaky, uneven pink showing through, the purple showing through still, so it's not clear and bright. Also decided that I'm going to put some flowers on the background, so I pulled out a stamp and have used my Derwent Inktense pencils here to colour it in, just some pansy looking flowers is the way that I coloured them in. That was the thought process I was going with. Decided that I want to put a bit more of this. It was looking a little bit flat, so I want to put just a spray of some shimmers on, just to sort of Heidi Swap shimmers to give it a little bit of a shine feel to it. Once that is nearly dry, I pull out the white gesso and add some white splatters trying to go for a range of big splatters and small little ones. Still trying to just add texture and layers to the background, so I pull out this old stencil that I have and a couple of distress oxide inks, and am going to put a light alphabet on the background. You don't really read any of the letters by the time the page is finished, but you could just see it as a soft colour texture in the background. So once again, the pink and the purple that I'm using here was what the original page was, so I'm still trying to keep the same colours as what I initially had, but it did move away more than what I planned. I planned on really sticking with the pinks and the purples, but as you can see, it ends up being quite a blue background. But you know what it's like. You start going down one path, and before you know it, you're heading down another path. But I really like the way that it's come out. So I've cut out all the drying. Every time I've done a layer, I've dried between the layers to make sure the paints and the different inks don't mix together. Put out the gesso again, putting some more splatters, putting some white streaks on the top corners just to lighten up the edges a little bit, and now I'm just using the gesso to put a white, tiny thin white border around the edge of the page. It's a lot of the time it's not noticeable, but you can sort of see it in some of the areas. Pulled out this stencil, wanted to add a little bit more texture again. Initially had a bit of trouble making it go through, but in a minute I get the hang of how to, instead of dabbing like I'm doing at the moment, I end up just rubbing, and that worked a lot better. So once again, you don't actually see the pattern that it's making, but you just get little glimpses and hints of texture and lines in the background. So just building the layers. It's come together nicely. So still not exactly sure. I've got a vague idea how I would like it to look. What I know, I want the feet that you saw. I know that's the idea, but I'm not exactly sure of what else I want to do. So I'm just sort of winging it as I go along. Pull out this stencil and decided that I'll add some leaves around the edge. So I go right around the edge of the page, just adding this texture. Then I go back in once I finish because they're not dark, and I use a different range of pens to add some colour. You'll see me do that in a minute. I only recently got my Distress Oxide inks, and I've been really enjoying playing with them and seeing what I can do. I don't own any other inks really. Maybe I own a StazOn, a brown StazOn I think, a black archival ink, and a couple of other small inks. But I brought the whole set of 12 Distress inks, and I'm really enjoying those. So here you go, I've pulled out a range of Copics and Pitt markers and a Sharpie, and I find the greens that I want to use, and now just go through and make the leaves a little bit darker and give them some couple of different shades of green, give them some texture and dimension. Then I pull out the black marker and I go around and draw sketchy lines all around the leaves just to sort of make it look like it's a little bit viney, if that's a word. Viney, that's a word now. I'm going to run with it. So here's my feet that I've cut out from the magazine. And you can see the magazine that I've cut it out, just a Frankie. Initially was unsure whether it's what I was going for, but I decided the feet that I drew was not going to work. They were quite bad. I suppose I probably could have traced around these feet and used them, but I never gave that a thought at the time. But anyway, I like the way it turns out in the end. I don't know, I get a bit of a tiptoeing through the night garden type of feel. Put the feet down, grab my pansies that I've coloured in, and I'm going to glue those down. I started off using this glue stick because a lot of people I have noticed have been using it, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. But yeah, it didn't work for me. I threw that away pretty quickly and went back to the trusty matte medium and glued everything down with that. Really liking the way that's coming together. Trimming off the excess. Just like the way the vines and the leaves in the background sort of frame the page. And then her feet look like they're just tiptoeing through a small garden. She's trying not to tread on anything. I quite like the way that's looking. Draw some lines down for my pansy, some stems for them to hang on. Once again, going for that sketchy feel. Pull out the white highlighter in a moment and add some highlights. Add some shading between her legs, around between her feet to give a little bit of depth. Wasn't quite the dark enough blue, but I don't have a darker blue, so made it work, as you do. Grab out the brown, once again, add some shading under her feet, and I know I'm off the page a little bit here, but I just also add some different colours to the bricks as well, different shading, just to give it a bit of depth to the bricks. And I come back in a little bit later too, if I haven't already done it by this stage, with the sketchy pen, and I just drew some sketchy lines through the bricks. This particular one here, when I stamped, I did a second stamp and it wasn't quite as dark, so I just used the black pen there to add some black to that one to make it similar to the others. Now using the white highlighter, going away around and putting a little highlight on all the leaves and the flowers and on her legs and down the stem of the plants. It really makes it sort of pop off the page, give it a little bit of dimension. Like the way that's looking. Quite like, as I said, I think I said before, the sketchy feel of here. And then nearly getting to the end of it, I come back in a moment, add my quote in. I just flip through to see whether or not I want to use the label maker, whether I know I generally like the look of it, so just having a look where I've used it the last couple of times and trying to decide whether I use the label maker or whether I'll get those small alphas out that you can see, but I go with the label maker. Put the quote down, do some sketchy marks around it with the black and the white pen, and that's pretty much comes to the end of the layout. I hope you enjoyed this layout. If you did, or spread, if you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I love to read the comments and answer any of your questions. Put this down crooked and have to pull it back up once I turn the book straight. There we go. Add it down. As I'm adding it down, the matte medium, smudging the oxide in the background a little bit, making it go over top of the label. So I really like the way that's looking. Sort of just makes it blend in that little bit more. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And leave me a comment. Love to read them. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye.